Marmite, just one of the items in a hamper delivered to Michel Barnier by a delegation of Brexiteers this week. Very apt, you might think, when it comes to Brexit. The hamper also included gin, sparkling wine, marmalade, and the complete works of Shakespeare. But was it enough to persuade Michel to give the UK a good trade deal? Join me now, Steven Woolfe, MEP, who led the delegation. Steven, lovely to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
What did you make of Michel Barnier? We get second-hand reports from those involved in the negotiations. You spent some time face-to-face with the man. What's your appraisal?
Yeah, it's not the first time I've met him. I've had conversations with him in Strasbourg, and I was one of the first and only British MEPs to have a delegation of other MEPs when he was explaining what his strategy for the negotiations were. What you've got to take about Michel Barnier, he is a very strong-willed Gaullist French politician. Mm-hmm. He's of the mould where he understands the politics as well as the civil service. But more importantly, that we have to understand his full strength, power, idea and backing is behind the EU 27 against the United Kingdom. It's his interest to make sure they are protected, not to help us.
See, I wonder what Michel Barnier made of you and the delegation, you know, beware of Brexiteers bearing gifts and all of that. Now I like a gin as much as the next TV presenter, but was that bottle of Hendrick's, was that enough to persuade Michel Barnier to include financial services in the trade deal?
No, I don't think it is at the moment to allow financial services in a trade deal. Look, let's look at the context of why we gave those various gifts. Some of them is to show the link between companies like Unilever, which is Anglo-British, to say that we could continue trade, and Hendrick's and the cheeses we have to show the modernity of where we were going. But he will not allow us to have a trade deal, in my view, that includes goods and services, and it will not allow one that has the free rein of the financial services sector to be able to trade to.
Were the British public then, when they voted on leaving the European Union, were they sold something of a pup then? Because I remember being told, you know, it'll be fine. We can continue, the City of London can continue to operate as it always has.
Well, the City of London will still be able to operate as it has in terms of trade. That's what we always said. You'll still be able to buy goods and sell goods and have the marketing elements. What the city needs to understand is that where there are principles that apply to the United States, something called equivalence, that equivalence will not be complete for the British market now, as I understand it from our discussions with those in the Econ Committee and what I come out with Michel Barnier. I think it's clear that they're going to try and divide the City of London to those of us like me who think we can diverge and have our own set of rules for those companies that don't trade with Europe and allow us to, what we believe in, if you're in Europe, trade on their rules. And I think there's an argument in the European Union that that would be too competitive for Britain, therefore we must make sure all British businesses comply with EU rules. I
mean, if you're right, and if that turns out to be the case, and we're essentially hamstrung to an extent by the European Union in terms of that deal, I mean, is no deal better than that deal, in your view?
I think that's one of the key points that the delegation was taking to Michel Barnier. You have, in terms of Lord Digby-Jones, somebody who understands business completely. You have in John Longsworth someone who understands the businesses that are part of Leave Means Leave and the MPs from the Conservative Party. Of course, with John Mills, 2 million supporters of the Labour movement behind his Labour Leave. And we were all saying to him, if we leave on WTO rules, Europe will suffer worse than us.
In what sense?
Well, I made a very clear point to him. Not only will some of the high-end German businesses and European businesses suddenly be hit by a tariff, most favoured nation, but as I'm being told, traders are informing me that the currency would depreciate by 20%, thus increasing products in Germany by 20%. Think of that. A BMW that might be 50,000 with a Land Rover now going to 60,000. What are you going to buy, the Land Rover or the BMW?
Nigel Farage raised a few eyebrows this week, and I imagine yours included, when he appeared to say that a second referendum might not be a bad idea. Put the debate to bed, stop all the whinging and whining of the Remoaners.
Well, his mathematics are wrong there to start off with. It's going to be the third referendum, and this is not a game of tic-tac-toe. We're not here to try and have the best of three. The key point that we should understand is that Michel Barnier knows that he wants to have Brexit in March 2019, and the British people want to have their referendum, their vote, complied with. And there should be no movement on the idea of giving ultra-Remainers the view that they're in charge of this and that they can reverse this. And all he did was give succour and comfort and support to that ideology.
But he does have a point, though, doesn't he, when he said that the Remain campaign, such as it is making all the running these days. The idea that, you know, the case for a clean break from the European Union simply isn't being made.
Well, I think He's absolutely right, and we're aware of the strength of the Remainer arguments. And one of the points that we were doing before Christmas, by raising the petition that was put online by a young man from the north of England that's now got to be debated in a few weeks' time in Parliament, by my visit with the three key people from the Leave movement to Michel Barnier, the speeches that I'm going outside the House of Parliament this afternoon and others around the country, there is a Leave fight back now on this ideology that Remainers are going to win.
You are, of course, no longer with UKIP, but I have to ask you what you make of the current furore surrounding the current UKIP leader's partner. Well, he's current the last time I checked this morning. Should she be expelled from the party? Should he be investigated as a result of comments that she...
Well, I've said I've left UKIP a long time ago. It's a matter for them. All I will say is that Nigel has done this when he was a leader. We found that with Diane James and myself, is that national executive and certain people within UKIP, whether those who are now no longer capable of speaking, for example, in the Welsh Assembly, have allowed those views to rise within UKIP. They were not there whilst we had a balanced, intelligent debate within the party. They need to sort themselves out if they want to be a radical party that can move. At the moment, they're nowhere near it.
I mean, briefly, what is the point of UKIP these days?
Well, there should be a point to represent those millions of people here that are stuck in the middle between Labour and Conservative parties who ignore them and leave them behind and don't listen to their views. And they really should have had that mantle. I don't think they've got it at the moment, and there's certainly no one rising from the ranks capable of taking it.
Well, we all have the delightful prospect of another UKIP leadership election to look forward to. Stephen Woolfe, lovely to have you in the studio. Thanks very much for being with us.
Take care. Thanks.